door.
Hey, Ruth.
Yes.
Well, quiet. Brian Pinkston is now my alternate.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can make that official. We had an RTP meeting yesterday and Brian's my alternate.
Appreciate you confirming that.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Ned,
Yes.
at the conclusion of this meeting, can you hang on for just a minute so we can clarify some things for the beginning of the next virtual meeting, the policy board?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right, is everybody in there, Ruth?
I believe so.
Be clicking away throughout the start of the meeting here. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the slow start. We're getting everybody admitted in from the waiting room. But I understand we do have a quorum, so I will call the meeting to order and we will do the electronic notice first.
This meeting of the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership is being held pursuant to Code of Virginia, subsection C of section 2.2-3708.3, which allows a public body to hold all virtual public meetings. The meeting is being held via electronic video and audio means through Zoom online meetings and is accessible to the public. The method for holding this meeting shall not change unless a new meeting notice is provided. Should the electronic transmission fail, you may reach out to the CVRHP at remerick@tjpdc.org. The notice has been provided to the public through notice at the TJPDC offices, to the media and website postings and agenda. The meeting is held pursuant to the remote electronic participation and all virtual meeting policy as adopted by the TJPDC Commission on July 25th, 2024. The meeting minutes will reflect that the meeting was held by electronic communication means and the type of electronic communication means by which the meeting was held. A recording of the meeting will be posted at the TJPDC website within 10 days of the meeting.
All right, thank you. And then if we could do a roll call of the membership.
Ned Galloway,
Here.
Michael Payne, Bree Murray Key, Ron Williams,
Present.
Rachel Jones. Rachel Jones, I see you here.
Oh, she's waving. She's there. She's muted. She's there. But she's on. She's there.
Okay. Jesse Rutherford,
Here.
Diantha McKeel,
Here.
Margaret Clare, Keith Smith, Luke Rourke. Can you unmute, Luke?
Here.
Thank you.
Here.
Fitzgerald Barnes, Emily Dreyfus,
Here.
Greg Powell,
Here.
William Park, Peter Holman,
Here.
Cameron Moore, Dan Rosenswag. William Park just entered the meeting. William Park, can you confirm that you're here? William, can you confirm that you're here?
Yes, got you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Rosenswag?
Ruth, it's Michelle Walmsley as alternate.
Thank you. Shayla Washington, Sunshine Mathon,
Present.
Colette Sheehy, Annette Hyde,
Here.
Kim Highland,
Here.
Dave Norris,
Here.
Luis Oyola, John Sales, or Kathleen Glenn Matthews.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And if this is your first meeting, I know it's a little interesting sometimes by Zoom, hard to introduce everyone, but we welcome you to your first meeting. We do have some folks on that could be joining. I believe we have a representative from Senator Deed's office. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. My name is Meredith.
Good afternoon. Do we have any others representing any of our legislators? I know one or two others may join. And if I'm missing anyone, you're welcome to speak up. But today, I officially call to order the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership Wednesday, December 18th, 2 p.m. meeting. And we're going to roll through here. There's more information being pushed out today than a lot of talking or discussion from us. So I'm looking forward to the info that will be shared with everyone. First, we're going to go to comments from the public. Is there anyone online who wishes to provide public comment today? By raise of hand. Last call. All right, we will go ahead and close public comment and move to the consent agenda. We do have the minutes from September 25, 2024. Are there any changes or edits to those minutes from anyone? All right, hearing none, I'll need a motion to adopt those minutes.
So moved.
Second,
All right, the motion has been made by Mr. Park, seconded by Ms. McKeel. If everyone would unmute. And then I will call for all in favor of adopting the September 25, 24 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I need to abstain, Ned.
One abstention, any others?
I mean, I don't think I was at the last one.
Don't recall.
I don't recall. I mean, I'll abstain, but if it's necessary for me to vote for it to pass, I'll vote yeah, aye.
I think we got the pass through with the abstention. Thank you. And then the next item, the fiscal year 25 year-to-date financials. Ruth, any comments you want to make here before we accept these?
Yes, I have an update on the financials that I can share with you. If you give me one moment, I will share my screen. Here is a look at our expenses to date. As you can see, the largest amount of remaining funds, this is through October, are under personnel and professional development. The professional development costs will be.
Hey, Ruth,
Yes.
I don't think we're seeing
Your email.
what the database you're trying to share. We're
Thank
seeing the
you
email I
for
just sent
letting
you.
me know. Is that any better?
There you go. It's a little small, but it's not your email, so we can see the financials.
My apologies for that. A little tricky with two screens sometimes. So like I was saying, the two categories with the most remaining funds are staff time and professional development, but this is financials through October, so it does not include travel to the state housing conference in these totals. So that will be drastically reduced by the time I provide another update to you all. So we have about $10,000 left total in the RHP budget for the year. But the funds that are supporting the housing summit and the housing study that we are working on are in a separate accounting.
Great.
Those are my only comments.
Any questions about the financials? If I could have a motion to accept the fiscal year 25 year-to-date financials.
I have a question, Ned.
Yes, please.
So people from TJPDC who attend the state housing conference are funded through CVRHP, not through TJPDC?
That is correct.
Okay.
We sent 2 people this year, 1 permanent staff member and our Vista.
Yeah, I saw them there. Okay, thank you.
And as a reminder, the Vista is funded out of the CVRHP budget as well. That's a $9,000 contribution to be a host site, but they are technically a federal employee.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion to
I move
accept?
approval of the 25 year-to-date financials.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. McKeel, second by Mr. Powell. If everyone would unmute. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you for that. If you're following along on the agenda, we do not have any action items today, so that will take us right to number 5, a new business. I'm very pleased today to have Isabel McLean from Virginia Housing. She is the Director of Policy and Advocacy. We asked Ms. McLean to join us today to give us some overview or some prognostication of the General Assembly and what Virginia Housing is advocating for. So looking forward to hearing this information. So we've got it set up where Isabel will be able to give some presentation, but also have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So Isabel, I'm certainly going to turn it over to you. If there's any other points of introduction you'd like to make, I'll leave it to you. And then we're thrilled and grateful for you to spend some time with us here today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all making time and inviting me to speak here today. Been looking forward to it. As was said, my name is Isabel McLean. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Virginia Housing Alliance. We are a statewide advocacy organization, a small but mighty team of folks working to increase access to affordable housing and end and prevent homelessness across the Commonwealth. Really quick, should I go ahead and share my screen? I do
Yes,
have a
please.
presentation. Okay, cool. Let me do that then. There we go. Many of you are familiar. I know I've met some of you, but for those who I haven't, I will put my email in the chat too. Would love to connect with anyone if you have further questions. After this presentation today, I will briefly go through this PowerPoint, sharing a little bit about our legislative agenda for the 2025 General Assembly. And then I also want to leave a little bit of time at the end for questions. If you all want to talk about anything else that you know that is coming up or have any questions about housing related policy, would like to open the floor to you. But in the meantime, feel free to put questions in the chat and I'll try to monitor that too. All right, so for Virginia Housing Alliance, our legislative agenda, we divide our policy priorities into 3 different categories just to help us organize our efforts, because as many of you all, I'm sure, are aware, the world of housing is very broad, and there's a lot of different things that we need to work on to increase affordable housing. So one bucket that we put our policy is to increase affordable housing supply. We also have a bucket to increase access to housing, and that's a lot of efforts to increase housing stability, reduce housing costs, etc. And then the third bucket is preservation, how to preserve what affordable housing we do have and how to prevent displacement. So this first bucket here is affordable housing supply. These are a few of the items that we will be advocating for this coming General Assembly. The first of which to increase the State Housing Trust Fund, this has been one of our evergreen priorities at the Virginia Housing Alliance. We advocate for this every year and have done quite a lot of work. Currently, it is funded at $87.5 million, which is the highest it's ever been funded. We have been asking for the past couple years to reach $150 million a year. That's been our goal, our guiding star for where we want to get this trust fund to. So we're going to be continuing to ask that, and we'll see if we can make some more progress towards that from the current $87.5 million. I'll also say that every year the Virginia Housing Alliance releases an impact report on the State Housing Trust Fund, and we are just about to release our updated one for 2024. It'll be uploaded to our website, and we'll also announce it in our newsletter if any of you all receive that. It's a really, what we hope to be a useful tool to really show a tangible picture of where these dollars are going and what this trust fund does. The next item on here is related to our state housing tax credit. So here in Virginia, we have what's called the Housing Opportunity Tax Credit. It's pretty similar to the federal low-income housing tax credit. Many of you probably are aware of this. Specifically, tax credits in Virginia are authorized for 5 years at a time. So the sunset for this tax credit is at the end of 2025. So this General Assembly, folks are coming together to extend that date for another 5 years. And there's been a lot of conversation about expanding it, increasing the investments in it, as well as trying to strengthen certain aspects of it too, which if that doesn't necessarily happen this year, it's a kind of an ongoing conversation about how we can improve that tax credit. The last thing on here is relates to an effort that came out of the JLARC Affordable Housing Study. The Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission released a study on affordable housing in Virginia in 2021. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar. One of the recommendations was to create an incentive fund for localities that they could tap in for to get maybe technical assistance to help cover costs of passing new policies, et cetera, to provide that incentive to pass policies that facilitate the development of affordable and diverse and more dense housing. There's an array of different programs and policies that could kind of qualify under this. It would be a small fund of about $5 million, but something that could help push localities in the direction of giving them more capacity to potentially adopt some of these policies. Delegate Carr has carried that for the past couple of years and will carry it again this year. So regarding housing access and stability in this bucket, as I mentioned before, one of our absolute top priorities this year is to fund and create what we're calling the 5,000 Families Pilot Program. This is the second year that we're working on this initiative, but it's built on many years of work that us and other housing advocates have done to try to establish a state-funded rental assistance program to supplement and fill the rather large gap that's left behind by our federal Housing Choice Voucher Program. In Virginia, only 1 in 5 Virginians who qualify for that program are actually able to receive it. And we know now that things are getting worse. We're seeing increased housing cost burden as rents continue to increase. So there's all the more reason and all the more urgency for the state to take responsibility and try to do more to fill that gap for folks. This specific proposal is for a pilot program. It would be 3 years, and we're asking for $80 million upfront for that 3-year program. This would bring us back to a budget year so that we could come back in a budget year where there's a little bit more flexibility and with the data from the program to decide next steps and how we might want to continue this pilot program. Specifically for this program, we are targeting low-income families with school-aged and younger children. This is really highlighting the ways that housing stability is so foundational to a child's educational achievement, to their well-being, to their ability to show up at school each morning ready to learn. And so through this initiative, we've been partnering with many different organizations from different sectors, including education, early childhood development, family well-being and services, et cetera, to really come together around this common message that investments in housing stability is an investment in our future. and really highlighting the ways that housing stability can impact a child for the rest of their lives, their educational achievement, further on, the type of jobs they're able to get, the healthcare they're able to access, and even the length of life that they have. So we're really excited about this year. As I said, it's our second year introducing it. We have a growing bipartisan and regional support for this. Delegate Carrie Coiner, who's carried this in the past, is going to carry it, reintroduce it, as well as Delegate Brianna Sewell, Senator Mamie Locke, and Senator Todd Pillion. We are introducing it as a bill and a budget amendment, so that's why there are 4 patrons. I do also have on here, you can scan this QR code, or you can go to 5000families.com. That's 5000families.com to learn more about this campaign and sign up for updates if you're interested and would like to help us advocate for this. 2 other things that are under this bucket. We are advocating for increased funding to the Virginia Homeless Solutions Program. This is our state's contribution to homeless services. Until this past year, that funding had not increased in over 10 years. So we have a lot of catching up to do. We're requesting $2 million for program funding, and then $2 million in a set aside for capacity building for our lead continuum of care agencies. And then lastly, we're also going to be advocating for increases to a program that DBHDS administers, the State Rental Assistance Program, which provides housing assistance for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, enabling them to live in the community as independently as they choose. Unfortunately, due to costs of living of recent years, we have actually lost several of the vouchers that we had funded previously. We lost about 120 vouchers for this program in the last fiscal year. So we're going to be asking for $5 million to try to restore those lost vouchers and continue to grow this program slowly towards meeting the goals for this program, which is to serve 10% of folks on the Medicaid DD waiver and wait list. And then lastly, this is our preservation bucket. For those who maybe were following along last year, these will be 2 familiar bills as well. The first of which will be reintroduced by Delegate Bennett Parker. And this is to give localities the authority to establish a right of first refusal for publicly supported multifamily housing. So housing that has received government subsidies, that has rent restrictions. So for these properties, when they sell towards the end of their affordability restrictions, and there's no plan in place to continue those affordability restrictions. So this is to be a tool to for localities to be able to step in and protect some of this really valuable housing, especially where it's needed most, so that we can still continue to make progress towards meeting our affordable housing goals, not losing what we currently have while also building and developing more. This bill did pass out of the House and Senate this past session. Unfortunately, it was vetoed by Governor Youngkin. We've been working with the patron this summer and fall on some language to hopefully open the door for and to address the concerns that Governor Youngkin had in vetoing it. We'll see what happens, but we believe we've really strengthened the bill for this year. The next bill on here is related to tax assessments of affordable housing. This is an issue that we've heard about and seen for many, many years from affordable housing providers across Virginia, that in practice, many of their properties are still being assessed as market rate properties, that there's been some miscommunication of our current code or misapplication in some ways. I mean, the reasons vary significantly of exactly what's going on and how there may be some inaccurate or inconsistent tax assessments. But if for any affordable housing providers on the call, I know that this is a familiar issue of trying to do what we can at the legislative level and also an administrative level to ensure that tax assessments are correct the first time, and it doesn't require an appeal to ensure that the income approach, which is supposed to be used for income producing property like affordable housing with rent restrictions, to ensure that that is used to reach that valuation. This bill we introduced last year and it was sent to the Housing Commission, and we've been working really hard on updates to it in partnership with Commissioners of Revenue, the Virginia Association of Counties, Virginia Municipal Leagues. There's definitely been some disagreement along the road for exactly what the best solution forward is, but I believe we're starting to resolve some of that, and we should have a bill this next session that, while there may not be a total peace in the valley, but I think we've worked through some kinks to close some loopholes in our current code, make it really clear what's expected, and try to instill a piece of accountability to this as well. We're also working with the Commissioners of Revenue to, in partnering with them, to develop a training through the Department of Taxation for assessors on how to assess affordable housing correctly too. So this is a bigger effort, but this bill is one piece of that, and we will be bringing it back. Oh, and I will say Delegate Carlson actually is the one that's going to be carrying it this year, in partnership with Delegate Coiner, who carried it last year. Alrighty, I don't want to take up too much time. I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I was just going to say that if you're interested in more detail about some of the things I mentioned, our legislative agenda is on our website at vahousingalliance.org. You can also follow along during the session. We do a legislative tracker for housing related bills. We also send out updates in our newsletter. And we will do a wrap-up session at the end to share updates about housing. And of course, we will send out calls to action during the General Assembly too. So if you are interested in getting notified when there's an opportunity to advocate for affordable housing, I encourage you to sign up for our action alerts on our website. The last thing on here, I just wanted to share that there are many other housing items that are planning to be brought up into this General Assembly as well. What I mentioned today are just the items that Virginia Housing Alliance is responsible for and leading on our specific agenda, but we have quite a long list of bills and budget items that we will be supporting, or like still considering and working through with folks. I've listed some of them on here, but for the sake of time, I don't want to necessarily go through these. I would love to see if any of you have questions. If there is something that is mentioned on here that you would like to ask me about, feel free. Couple highlights. There's going to be some efforts to expand the Virginia Eviction Reduction Pilot Program. There's been a lot of work around the faith and housing bills. If you are familiar with that, I can go into deeper detail. There's going to be continued proposals to allow localities to establish anti-rent gouging policies or ordinances. Several different tenant rights bills, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. There we go. And I just want to open the floor if anyone has any questions or there are any other housing related issues or bills that you would like to ask about.
Thank you, Isabel. I will go right to some questions. If you got them, if you could throw your hand up if you have some. I see Luis, I saw yours first. We'll start with you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Isabel, for your presentation. I have a question regarding the one for down payment assistance for COTs there towards the end. I was made aware of that effort via Virginia Poverty Law Center, and we had a meeting last week about it where we talked through concerns about it being down payment assistance rather than development subsidy. So I don't know if you heard that too, or if you have any thoughts on that.
I actually appreciate you saying that because I had a conversation with Christy from VPLC yesterday, and she updated me that the new proposal is not going to be for down payment assistance, but for development funding. That she kind of shared, I guess, a little bit of the meeting that you were at, that there's potentially a greater need for actually funding to develop housing on CLTs. There is already are some existing resources for down payment assistance, but the need there is greater. So I don't know if you want to add anything more to that, but that was what Christy told me. So
yeah, you got it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Just want to make sure that happened.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. I should have updated that. I forgot to do that.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Rutherford, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, on that last slide, you had prohibit algorithmic rent increases, I believe. What does that mean?
So basically, I think Housing Opportunities Made Equal and Virginia Poverty Law Center will be taking the lead on this, but this is to try to prevent. Currently, many landlords might use property management companies to that use different algorithms based on rent data from many different areas, kind of use that cumulative data to create, like to determine what they should charge as rent. And there's been a lot of research, I think a couple headlines coming out recently of some of these companies that are providing these algorithms, how in many ways it's there's been evidence that they are kind of colluding to rise rents up more. I think there's some more kind of egregious cases. The name of the company is not coming to my mind right now, but if anyone knows this or is familiar with this, feel free to jump in. But basically, it's, I forget the exact term, but basically kind of having too much control over the market with these algorithms in a way that everyone's kind of basically raising the rent for no reason, just because they can. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what this bill will be proposing for how to prevent that. I think it might be prohibiting the use of certain companies that do that, but I have not seen that actual bill. So if you're interested, you can feel free to email me and I can try to follow up once I have more of that data, or I can connect you with the Poverty Law Center or with Home to get a copy of that bill.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Get my mute off. Stacy mentioned the name, it looks like, in the chat. Stacy Pepper.
Yes, real page. Thank you. I appreciate it. That was just not coming to my mind.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands up. Looks like Margaret just dropped something in the chat for awareness. It looked like a couple of things on that last page might be addressing. Our board has had some conversation about dealing with landlords who are not doing upkeep or maintenance. Supervisor McKeel might want to add color commentary here. But some of those seem to be very specific. Is there anything happening at your level that's speaking to giving localities the ability to deal with landlords that are not doing upholding their responsibility for quality of facilities, et cetera?
Yes. So you may be familiar, there's been efforts in the past to give localities the ability to sue landlords themselves for bad conditions. Unfortunately, that bill has been vetoed. The last I heard, Delegate Price, who's introduced that in the past, is planning to introduce it again. So we'll see. I know that she feels really passionately about this and really, really wants this to pass. So if not this year, if I'm mistaken, it will definitely be reintroduced next year when we have a new governor. So there's continued efforts there. And then there is also a bill being put forth that would study the extent and impact of mold on tenants' health, trying to use this kind of data to then be able to kind of fuel policy efforts in the future that might involve working with localities for that. But I know that in particular, sometimes dealing with mold can be a little bit tricky. And so trying to use this study as a way to find a path forward for that. And really show the extent and impact that it has on tenants' health. But as far as anything else, I think those are the main things I can think of when it comes to enforcing habitability standards. I know that there was a bill this past session allowing localities to raise the fees that they charged against landlords who were repeatedly not having building code violations. So I know that I think there's been some conversations on potentially continuing maybe a next step to that, but I just am not aware of exactly what that is. But as far as I know, Delegate Price will be trying to bring back that one bill.
Thank you for that. Kim, you got a question there?
Yeah, I've got a question. Just something to note, Isabel, I really like this idea of being able to sue landlords who are not upkeeping their properties. We have a number of properties in the counties that I service where people fall into a very gray area where they're not the homeowner and they're not renters. They're in a very underhanded rent to own type of a situation, particularly in some very bad mobile home parks. that have intentionally not been kept up and have been bought out by hedge funds. You know, so their objective is to absolutely rape the people of their money and get them to move out and then get new people in. But they are under a rent to own contract, and the homes are not, they're not movable. They're not in any serious condition. I'm sure you've heard of the 605 park. So just if there's any language like that that we can include in there, that would be very, very helpful to give our localities some teeth to go after people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about that. I'll try to bring that up to Delegate Price because even if it gets vetoed again this year, there's opportunity to continue to work and strengthen that bill. So if there are things that we can add to it to ensure that you all have the power to also go after folks putting people in this type of situation with that rent to own kind of policy that is very scammy and icky to me, but yes, indeed. But yeah, I can let her know. And then if I mean, potentially she might want to reach out to you all to talk a little bit more about how to address that. But I will also say, just related to manufactured home parks, that unfortunately there are not going to be a ton of bills this time around related to manufactured home parks, even though there's a lot of work to be done there. And efforts are still continuing, conversations are still being had, but with the bill that was introduced last year about setting a right of first refusal for manufactured home parks, it got so gutted and pulled apart in that whole process. Thankfully, you know, we still were able to achieve an increase in the relocation fees or relocation costs that an owner has to cover if they've sold a park to someone who will redevelop or will no longer have it be a manufactured home park. So that's still a good win. And then there was also, you know, updates to the Manufactured Home Lot Rental Act to bring it more in line with the Landlord Tenant Act. But there are this year we're just not going to be able to come back with that ROFR bill yet, waiting for a new administration. But there are a lot of efforts to try to, at the very least, expand the right to purchase that residents currently have and try to protect those properties. Just will be in 2026.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I see there's another question.
Supervisor McKeon?
Oh, yes, I just had a quick question here because the devil's always in the details, right? I just want to make sure that the bills that are coming forward to protect folks that are renters, that those bills, include property management companies, because what I have in my district is that folks buy up these properties, apartment complexes, and then they turn it over to a property management company. The owner is probably not even in the state. And the property, so just devil's always in the details. I just want to make sure that those property management companies are included.
Thank you for saying that, and I'll bring back. I'm pretty sure that they will be, but I'll verify and make sure.
Yeah. And mold is a real problem in many of my units, and it is interesting. And I just comment because the rent to own, I haven't heard a lot about that in Albemarle. Maybe it's out there. I only know of one case. But I'm really appreciative that somebody mentioned that as being a problem, something to keep an eye on. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any final thoughts or questions from anyone? If I'm not seeing your hand, you can speak up.
No, this is Sunshine. I just wanted to first thank Isabel for presenting today. And I put this in the chat, but just to state it out loud, just full transparency, I serve on the board of Virginia Housing Alliance and actually serve on the legislative committee and have worked with Isabel for years now on this stuff. So I say that also in part that if there are additional things that would be helpful, I can act as a bridge if helpful back and forth between.
That's great.
I appreciate that, Sunshine. Thanks.
Well, if there are no other questions, Isabel, would you be able to or willing to share the presentation that you provided? You could always email that to myself or Ruth, and we can make that available. Specifically, the barcode. The barcode was the link to.
I can put that link in the chat and my email as well, and then I'll definitely follow up with the PowerPoint. But that was a link to our 5,000 Family Campaign website.
That
So
one I would definitely.
I'll put that in the
appreciate when
chat.
that dropped in there. I would imagine some of you are on the mailing list, but if those, if you're interested, especially in helping with advocacy, that sounded like the email list is when they do their calls to action. So I would just say for those who are interested in some of these topics, that join that mailing list, and we can help hit at the General Assembly level doing our part to see if we can get anything passed. Meredith, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know you're representing Senator Deed's office, but I would like to just give you a chance to comment if you wish, but you do not need to do so. We asked Senator Deeds, Delegate Carlson, and Delegate Lawfer at our meeting with our joint legislative meeting what their thoughts were coming General Assembly specific to housing. So we've got some of their comments on record through another way. But anyway, I will give you a chance to make comment if you wish.
Thank you. I didn't really prepare anything, and I think I mean, I can't speak better than Senator Deeds would, so everything that he said is basically said in what he's prioritizing this session.
I know that he was commenting on the state trust fund for housing. I think he was speaking to a different trust fund, however, than what Isabel was mentioning. Is there another trust fund out there, Isabel, that you're aware of?
There's only one state housing trust fund. I'm not entirely, I don't know if that's what Senator Deeds is speaking about, but there is only one state level trust fund that I'm aware of.
I know he had mentioned that and some of the funding efforts going there that he had mentioned that day, so I can follow up and revisit the remarks that were made or my notes on that. I don't have them in front of me and push that back out. But Isabel, thank you so much again for taking the time to share the information with our partnership, and we look forward to seeing what you all can advocate for and get accomplished at the state level this coming session.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Have a very good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, next on our agenda, we've got some more information coming out, our presentation. This is the Deep Dive Coves at Monticello project in Fluvanna. And our own executive committee member, Mr. Park, is going to lead this presentation. Mr. Park?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure how deep I can go in 10 minutes, so I'm going to rush through this pretty quickly. And basically what I'll do, I dusted off a presentation that we did for Fluvanna probably 2 or 3 years ago when we proposed this to Fluvanna County. So Ruth, if you don't mind helping me, if I share screens, this might be the end of the session today. So first of all, most of y'all know who we are. We have 4 distinct companies. Pinnacle, our general contracting company. Bluestone Land is our development company. Park Properties is our asset management company. And we are also a mortgage banker for Virginia Housing with Bluestone Capital Advisors. Next, Ruth. Location of the site, it was a 60-acre site at the corner of Route 53 and Lake Monticello Road. Anybody that's been that direction, VDOT has put a new traffic circle in down there. Our particular project, the Coves, is a portion of the Colonial Circle development, of which Stanley Martin is building houses, both single-family houses and townhouses for sale. We're doing the apartment project, and then there, I believe, 3 lots out front on the corner that the owner developer retained for commercial development once we get the residential built out. Next, Luke. Here's conceptual site plan, 124 units, 5 apartment buildings, community center, pool, maintenance building. Next. Project summary, as I said, 124 garden style apartments, 92 2-bedroom and 32 3-bedrooms. And all of these 124 units are affordable units at 60% or below AMI. Next. So in this case, some of you all may be aware that the service a couple of years ago came out with a new way that you can meet the 60% AMI, meaning everyone didn't have to be below 60% as long as you could average out at 60% AMI. And we think this works very well because we were losing some people in that 60 to 70% AMI range that quite frankly needed this housing, but they unfortunately didn't qualify. So what the service came out with, for example, if you have one at 70%, one unit at 70%, you have to have a offsetting unit at 50% in order for it to average out at 60%, okay? So in this case, and you all probably sitting here looking at the math, well, it doesn't seem like you exactly did that. Well, one of the concerns we have is the way the rule states that at any time, if you fall below or above, I'm sorry, that 60% at the end of the year, then essentially you're not meeting the requirements, and we don't want to be in a situation where we go below that range and lose tax credits. So what we do, we still skew it more toward a few more 50% units than we do 70% units in order to make sure that we feel like even if we make a mistake qualifying someone, we'll still be below that 60% AMI. Next, please. So what is the area median income for Fluvanna? And actually, I had to go back and update this from 3 years ago. I can't exactly remember the number, but I believe 3 years ago, the median income was in the mid to low 90,000. So you can see what's happened in the area here. And of course, Fluvanna County is part of the Charlottesville MSA. And so I put in the percentages here to give you an idea. This is the income qualifications. And if you pretty much focus on the 50, 60, and 70%, this is, for example, someone can earn no more of this if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 people. And of course, we can carry this out to 5, 6 people also. But this gives you an idea on the income ranges that we are serving. Next slide, please, Will. And so what does that mean? What does that equate to as far as rents for the 2 and 3 bedroom units that we have based on the various income ranges? One thing I want to note too is that this does not include the utility allowance. This is the gross income, that the maximum gross income that would be charged. So for example, in a 2 bedroom, off the top of my head, utility allowance is probably going to be somewhere between $125, $130 if you would subtract from this rent. 3 bedroom is probably going to be in that 160 to 165 range for utility allowance that you would subtract from this to get to the net rent that you would charge the renter. Next slide, please. And so this is another one we had to update a little bit too. So when we were, working with Fluvanna, we went back and we looked at some of the annual wages of some of the people that live in the area there to help target what we were trying to do. And this just gives some examples of those wages in the area that I think fit very well into what we're trying to do here at this complex. Next, please. As I said, this is part of the Colonial Circle rezoning, which was up to 325 units, of which we're 124 units. Next. Comprehensive plan, and this is in the Ravenna Community Planning Area, which is a designated growth area. Next, please. And as I have Ned and Diantha on this today, one of the first things we do as a developer when we're going into an area is, first thing we do is look at the comprehensive plan. And what does the comprehensive plan tell us or guide us with respect to housing? And this is one of the areas in there where it certainly encouraged affordable housing to remain sustainable and livable. It goes on to say that the community needs diverse and affordable housing below 80%, which is what we did here. Next, please. And these are a couple of the excerpts from the comprehensive plan, but you can see I highlighted those areas in bold. Partnerships are critical to the effective provision of affordable housing. Essentially, we had a partnership not only with the developers here in Stanley Martin, but also with the county in the fact that they rezoned the property, and we had a performance agreement with them where we abated real estate taxes, which that leads into the next area there where we have offered incentives for building mixed income housing, which is what the county did. Next, please. And so overall, total development costs a little north of 21 million. We were able to use 4% tax credits with taxes and bond financing through Virginia Housing. Also, we met National Green Building Standards. One of the reasons we were also able to make this work, in addition to having a performance agreement, we were in a difficult developed area as designated by HUD, which gave us extra basis, which meant extra tax credits that were equity into the deal. This is a single purpose entity, as all our developments are, and it's managed by Park Properties, which is a VHDA certified management agent. Next, Ruth. It's a little bit on the financial incentive. Essentially, it was a 15-year performance agreement, 10 years of abating real estate taxes, and then years 11 through 15, we ramped it up 20% a year till we got to full assessment. And essentially what we do there, if you think about it, during that 15-year period, we're counting on some appreciation in rents and value of the property. At the same time, we're paying down debt service. At the end of 15 years, we go back out, we recast the debt for another 30 years, and that lower debt service now enables us to be able to pay the full assessment. Next, please. And so, again, most of you all are aware of this, but additional economic impacts, of course, jobs, taxes, utility fees created by the initial construction. And then we have what we call the ripple effect from other local goods and services that are purchased. And then, of course, stabilized impact, effect that we have local jobs that are there. And then just the people living there, the income and taxes that are generated from having this project. Next, please. And so this is a analysis that we put together that it's not, I'm not sure exactly all the methodology behind it or the, I guess, quantitative part of it, but you can plug in the information that you're doing in this Housing Forward Virginia website. And essentially what it does, it gives an economic impact over the short term and long term. And as you can see, there's a significant positive impact to the locality based on this project. Next, please. And just briefly, we'll go through a few photos here. When this started, we had a site that was basically wooded that we had to work with Stanley Martin on the grading. And, we're going back after it's all built out, and we're not quite finished with this project as far as landscaping and the BMPs that we haven't converted yet. But this is the 5 buildings: community center, maintenance building, swimming pool as you're facing north. In the background there, you can see some townhouses and houses under construction. And this photo is probably about 3 weeks old. Next, please. Same photo. We just turned around facing south. You can see the VDOT circle there, and you take a left and you have the Lake Monticello. Next slide, please, Ruth. A little more detail on pool and community center. Next slide. Townhouses under construction, again, looking to the south. Next slide. Single family under construction, looking to the north. And next slide. And I just had to put this slide in there because this is us and Stanley Martin's 1.5 million contribution for a 10,000 gallon water tank and pump station and generator and you name it. It's not going to run out of water here. So I just felt like I had to put this in. Next slide, please, Will. Okay, and that's the end. And Ned, hopefully I did it within the 10 minutes.
Well, you're all good. I appreciate it. We'll go to questions here. Any questions on the project? I appreciate the update. Comments or questions? If I'm not seeing your hand, you can speak up.
I would love to have that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just grabbing it fast. I'd love to have that presentation if that's possible. I guess the expectation is we'll get that.
Yeah, I think Ruth already has it. Yeah, so that's fine, Pam, for sure.
I can share them after the meeting, yes.
And any questions, follow-up questions, feel free to email me if you want to.
Give it a look-see when you're driving through the roundabout out at Fluvanna.
I have kind of an observation. And I don't know if you're very familiar with Louisa as well, William. Fluvanna does fall under Charlottesville in the AMI percentages, but Louisa is substantially lower. For example, a family of 4 at 100% AMI is 94,000. And my numbers were actually 122,000 for Fluvanna in the Charlottesville area. So Fluvanna, unfortunately, just gets very skewed, falling under Charlottesville. When really, in my experience, the numbers for income track much more closely to Louisa. Would it be of any benefit? You know, I don't know what kind of, I don't know why Fluvanna has always fallen under Charlottesville, but it seems like Fluvanna and Louisa should be more under the same category. What the process is for HUD, would that help you guys? Would it hurt you if they adjusted the AMI to be more similar to Louisa?
Probably as far as development, it would be the opposite, right? Because of the higher incomes, we were able to make this work. You know, and I'm not sure why Fluvanna is included in the MSA with Charlottesville. Maybe it has something to do with Lake Monticello, right? Maybe that had something to do with it. But what would happen? Well, this was very difficult to do because it was a 4% tax credit deal. And I tell you how close it was to do. So we were 2021, and if you all were coming out of COVID, all of a sudden interest rates start going up on us. And VHDA has maybe 4 or 5 bond sales a year, right? I mean, you can't just go down there and get the money when you want it. So you have to wait for a bond sale. And essentially, we got in on the last bond sale, I think, for 21. And by the time they had the next bond sale in the spring for 22, it was probably 50 to 60 basis points higher. And at that point, even with the performance agreement and everything we had done and being in a DDA, the project would not work. That's how tight this was. Especially to do, and here's where the issue is. This was not a 9% credit deal, and I don't want to get bogged down here and it's too much, but this was not a 9% credit deal. In order to do that, I would have had to probably skew the rents down to 40 and 50% in order to get the tax credits, when we felt like the market, what was being left out was the 60 to 70%, right? Based on the salaries that you saw and the people that work there. So it just, at that time, this was the right project to have at that place. Louisa could absolutely use the same project, the same type of project. It's, but the rents would end up being lower, even though I agree with you, Fluvanna is more like Louisa than it is like Charlottesville.
Thanks, William.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Will, we really appreciate having the presentation.
You're welcome, yeah.
It's been nice to see it. I've been hearing about the project, so to get a little bit more info on it has been great to see. If there are any follow-up questions, obviously you all have Will in our email list and likely have him in your Rolodex anyway, so you guys can contact him and we can. I'm sure he'll share at the next opportunity if any questions do come through. But thank you again for that for your presentation this afternoon. And then to follow, we have a third presentation that we're going to do today, Mr. Rutherford, on manufactured housing. We're going to get some info on this item today as well. Mr. Rutherford.
Excellent. Have no fear, Jesse is here. And you gave me 10 minutes, so good luck for the rest of the meeting.
We could be a little liberal. It'll probably be the first time you'd, well, I won't make that.
I mean, I'm a little too conservative on my property rights law, so. First and foremost, for those who don't know who I am, my name is Jesse Rutherford. I'm changing hats today. Obviously, I'm a board member, but have been involved in the manufactured housing industry since I was about 6 years old. Sold my first single wide when I was 6 or 7. Made a $20 commission. It was a 2-bed, 1-bath, and sold it for 15 grand for my uncle. So, kind of going back to a little bit more history, I've served with the Virginia Manufactured Modular Housing Association We specialize in obviously looking at regulations, zoning, all the 10 yards related to the Virginia manufactured world of housing. Virginia actually does manufacture some of its own manufactured homes down in Southside Virginia. We also have a couple factories. I think it's like 3 or 4 factories related to modular. But first, I kind of want to just hit some 10,000 foot views because everybody likes to use nomenclature and just there's quantifiable pieces to that. And then I want to talk about, the price points of manufactured housing. So nomenclature. All right, click that next button a whole bunch. Trailer, mobile home, single wide, double wide, manufactured home, modular, on frame, off frame, prefab, panelized, tiny homes, ADUs, park models, factory built, cross mod, and multifamily. You've probably heard one of these terms at least once, maybe twice. If you're working in the Virginia legislation, you've likely heard most all of these words used in different ways to talk about zoning, to talk about regulations related to DPOR, DHCD. Moving on. So next page, we're going to talk about trailer and mobile home. For those of you in this, oh, the phone was there. Show. Okay, yeah, so go back there. Yeah, thank you. Trailer. Most people would call it a trailer park or a mobile home park. Both those terms are very much outdated these days. So a typical mobile home and trailer would have been built, a mobile home would have been a home built pre-1976. In 1976, you had the great trigger of HUD, where they got a large regulation base produced for manufactured homes, of which the terms mobile home and trailer followed. To know the history of this, manufactured homes really go back to the 1800s related to old wagons. That was when they were building them on site. People were traveling around the country, settling in different parts of the country. And then in the 1920s, we started getting homes built on trailers, known as RVs. You've seen the gambit. Some of your manufactured home communities in your specific magisterial districts have those units today. In the 70s, we said we have got to standardize this. We are getting a hodgepodge of things and we don't know what to call it. So then we have manufactured homes. So next page. These are the Vol travel trailers. So this is the beginning, early 1900s. You might have even seen these in your parks. I have had the great pleasure of owning about 25 or 30 of these things, and they're nightmares. They're so outdated. They have aluminum wire, asbestos related wiring, casing for insulation. Very much outdated. However, one of the big positives of this in the early 1900s is you became a homeowner for it was about, I think it was about 20% of your yearly salary you got to own a home. So it had its purpose, and then came the dawn of manufactured or trailer parks and mobile home parks. Next slide. A little bit more nomenclature, talking about single wide, double wide manufactured home. So now that we've talked about the pre-1976, let's go on over to the next slide. 1976 HUD code happened. You've likely seen the unit there that says 32 with the 911 address 1,000 times. It's a lot more common when the standardization took place. On the right side, that would be considered a double wide of sorts, built to the HUD code. Next slide. Here we are today, 2025. That is a single wide that you would purchase, and that is a double wide, all built to the HUD code. Now let's go on to what HUD means today. Nowadays, your standard manufactured home is built with low E windows, Energy Star appliances, 6-inch sidewalls with R22, increased floor and attic insulation, better duct system, 30-year architectural shingles, and a hybrid heat pump water heater. These are all part of the new Department of Energy requirements that we've integrated into our units. And I have stood the test myself building site builts versus single wides today. And I get a higher HERS rating for whoever knows what that means. It's basically about carbon offsets, how close to net zero housing you can get. And time again, I get a better HERS rating with a single wide than I do a site built of the same square footage. All right, moving on to the next piece, we're going to talk about modular homes. So modular homes are homes that are built to a common code related to your local code as well as your state. So, for example, when you build one of these, you're buying the home, let's say it's coming from Pennsylvania, they'll ask you what county is it going in. So they then have to build that home to what the state has, the IRC, so site built standards, the ones that every builder has to build to today, and bring it into a modular aspect. So this particular home is usually appraised with is appraised with stick builts. It's built with existing inventory, and it is not appraised related towards HUD homes. Okay, next slide. Modulars, it's a lot more common in today's world to be seeing some of the pictures that you're about to see. Ruth, did you push the button? There we go. We've had some great successes in building these homes across the country. You have that one right there on the left. I mean, you wouldn't be able to look at it and say that's a site built. You wouldn't even be able to identify. I would look at you and say you can't really tell ever until you get inside and you have to know what you're looking for. Next slide. And now this particular one on the bottom, not that next slide, previous slide. That one there on the bottom right, that is a home that we built over on the Eastern Shore. It's a 4-box modular, so we're able to put it on a pier system and provide the exact same product that those builders are out there. Next slide. All right. I don't know if this one is. This is. Or nomenclature. So those are all the things that you have learned related towards nomenclature. So what we're going to now go to is some extra things that we do that are really special. Next slide. Accessory dwelling units. This is a hot topic that we talk about all the time. Manufactured modular housing has been in this industry for a long time. We've been building accessory dwelling units probably since pre-1976. It was very common for a household that needed to bring in grandma on the property where they would purchase a single wide and put it there. In today's standards, we're now building modular and manufactured homes to either a HUD code or the local code to provide product that is available for people. I've sold a couple of these, and I'll put it to you this way. If you buy an ADU to a manufactured code, you're probably going to pay about 50 to 70% of what you would to build it on site. Next one, park models. This is another product we've been building for a long time. We all are familiar with the term tiny home. This is a product that we've been building for a very long time, and park models, they can be utilized in both the manufactured housing community. More commonly, you'll see them in like I'm not going to say permanently affixed RVs, but if you go to Florida, you're more likely to see more where people are just living out of their RVs 24/7. So similar places like out in Georgia as well as South Carolina. So we build these as well, more commonly done in the Midwest and out West and down in South side of America. But we're building the exact same thing you're seeing on Instagram for about 2/3 of the price. All right. And then we're going to go to the next nomenclature, and this is a new product that has come out in the last several years. It's called a cross mod. This is a home that is built to HUD code, but actually appraises exactly like a modular home or a site built. If you want to go to the next slide. So a cross mod, and there's just 2 pictures. This is what they look like. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this, a site built, a modular, or anything of that nature. What's neat about a cross mod is you get to be able to build this in a not going to say lesser regulated, because that's not correct, but with a more standardized regulation mechanism, and it can go anywhere in the United States of America. And this is a really cool product that we've offloaded in the last several years. With one of the perks of this being built to the HUD code, because we can standardize our production, it means in production, we're able to provide a more affordable product. For those who don't know, these homes are built in a conditioned space. They're built in controlled environments. So if it's raining outside, we get to still work on the inside. We just talked about mold a little bit ago. One thing that we don't run into that often in the process of building modular is running into weathered material and having mold issues after the fact. All right, so let's show some pictures. This is what the cross mod looks inside. Looks pretty typical, good for new construction. Those are some 8-foot ceilings. Next slide. This is what you'll see in the kitchen. Kitchen looks magnificent, looks beautiful. And we also have the ability to provide quartz, granite, a plethora of product that you would normally see built on site. Here's some more pictures of the bedroom. And then go, and that's a side picture of this shower right there. And then this is a picture of the what we'll do. I don't know who she is. Don't ask me. I borrowed this slide from someone. But we actually, in our industry, every year, we actually deliver homes to the downtown mall of DC that are usually Virginia built to display these for congressmen, senators, and whatnot. And if maybe some of you have been to the Virginia Governors Conference, where we also get to showcase some of our product there as well. We just have a great opportunity to showcase these things. This particular home is actually a cross mod. And this was the year that they made this product available to the public. And so HUD itself, we had the director of HUD and all sorts of individuals, Department of Energy, all have an opportunity to go out there and take a look at it, which is a neat aspect of manufactured modular housing. Move on to the next slide. Talking about cross mods, this is basically Fannie Mae's ruling on this. If there are no other cross mods in the area, you have to supplement it with site-built comps, at least 2. So that we're teaching you on what appreciation and depreciation looks like. Next slide. Nomenclature. Our manufactured housing industry is also in the business of multifamily. This product is kind of a very neat aspect for us because with the housing crisis that we have, we believe that we're the best supplier to produce a more affordable product. So I'm going to show you just a couple slides to follow. If you go to the next one. This is an example of a duplex. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is a modular home that we built as a duplex. When you do cost comparisons of purchasing a modular or manufactured home duplex, you're getting a product for less than, I believe it was coming in at 60 to 70% of the cost of that of a site built. And keep in mind, all of this is done on site. So once the house is set, roof is in, and siding's done, 85% of your work is done. At that point, you're just connecting to utilities, doing your standard site work, and maybe some touch-up stuff on the inside and adding your porches. Next slide. This is a side-by-side. I actually had a chance to see this particular one. This is a manufactured home duplex that is built to the HUD code. So with that being said, you're getting all of that standardized regulation coming down from HUD to Virginia, adding in some facts like wind zones and what the snow loads might be. They do modify it by a region where it's going. And then the next slide, this is a really, really cool showcase. This particular home, this blue one, the blue duplex. Yep. This home was built in Virginia, and the manufactured home multifamily concept originated in Virginia. So this particular unit, I have gotten to see a whole bunch of times, and I'm just going to tell you now, to purchase this home today as a developer or as an investor or even as an individual, you can purchase this for less than $130,000 delivered to your site. So go on to the next slide. We'll go on to the next one to show the floor plan. So this is a very standard 1-bedroom on each side product. There are some variations to it. There's one that has a 2-bedroom and a kitchen with a 1-bedroom and a kitchen on the other side. This allows you to have a standard 3-bedroom conventional septic system while also being able to showcase a duplex home. We've actually made some sales related to this to a guy who was going to buy a home, but also knew he had to take care of his grandmother. He purchased this, moved grandma in the 1-bedroom. Unfortunately, grandma wasn't able to live that long, but now he was able to, not only that, he was able to then rent it as a long-term rental for himself to offset his mortgage payment of whatever it was at that time, and have a little bit easier environment, and also provide housing inventory, which we are desperately in need of. Cool things about this: you get 2 meters, you can figure out your well situation. It's regulated on a state level, so this product is already being produced on Virginia land. I don't know of any near Charlottesville where it's happened. We're also starting to see these show up in manufactured home communities. So I'll show some pictures of the duplex. Here's the kitchen, really nice kitchen, goes to the ceiling. I think it's 9 foot at its lowest point. I think it's close to 10 or 11 at that little peak. Next slide. Another piece of this, for those who are in the apartment building, you probably played the scenario of also doing a modular home apartment complex. This is just an example of what one looks like, and I would look at you and say that looks pretty much the same as any other one you've seen. Cool pieces about this is it's able to you're able to do this in a very quick fashion, able to get it on site, get it done. You're limited by environmental factors such as rain and whatnot. Just have to have a good week to get a bunch of this stuff put in. And you're working on interior work and putting siding on the product. All right, next slide. Cool things about manufactured housing. In 2021, 88% of homes constructed were under $200,000 for manufactured home. That's 88%. And under that number, 97% of homes constructed were under $150,000. So just to put in perspective of, not going to necessarily say the flaw, but the skew, you're not seeing this happen on a common developer aspect. And it's a product that needs to be showcased and utilized more. Where are you going to buy a home for less than $200,000? And I'll say that's 2021. It's probably now closer to 230, 225. But even then, where else are you going to be able to get that product? Just to kind of give you a little bit of shipment data, go to the next slide. Then I'm going to skip some of the stuff later after this. Next slide, just to get an idea of what Virginia produces. If you look there in the middle, you see rank. For single wides in 2023, we were 20th in the United States for single wide purchases, and that was 609 units. And for double wides, we were 23rd, was 771. This number does not take into account modular homes. This is just purely HUD. So that's just kind of how we are as a region. And in terms of America, this is how much product we produce, 105,000 in 2023 and 112,000 in 2024. With that, we're seeing that number continue to increase. That's a lot of homes. We talk about what the housing needs are in America. And truly, I don't believe there's any entity more prepared for that, at least in more forgiving topography areas, than the manufactured homes. 130,000 for both units on the due? No, it's 130, or it is $130,000 total. So however you want to divide that, Kim. All right, next slide. There's some stuff on foundations that we're not going to go into. So when you're looking at this, do you know if it's a manufactured home or a modular home? You don't know. And the reality is these homes are able to be produced quicker. And you obviously you can know by some of the identifying factors such as title, the data plates, and all of that. But in terms of a quality product, 2x6 exterior walls, it's going to be really hard to tell. And I think after that, we're going to stop here because the rest is a bunch of logistic stuff about foundations, and we're not going to get into that. So questions?
Kim, I saw you dropped a question in the chat. You want to start there and then we'll open it back up to everyone?
Yeah, what was the
So you
square
said
footage?
130. Yeah, so it's probably about 130,000 for the entire unit. The unit I think is sitting at between 1,000 and 1,250, right?
For both duplexes then, for both of them?
So it's 130K for the entire
The
both.
entire
Yes.
unit, right? And it's
Yes,
two
not
homes
it's
in one unit.
130,000 for each side.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're about 600 square feet apiece.
I think roughly, yeah. There's
Okay.
some nuances to it with the 2-bedroom aspect and all that. But yeah, we're showcasing even more products, so that's changing daily.
And these are built in Virginia.
That particular blue one was built in Virginia, and you can purchase these duplex units in Virginia, which is another cost-saving mechanism for manufactured housing in Virginia.
Supervisor McKeel?
Yes. Thank you, Jesse. This was great. Boy, they're not the same as I remember back as a child, are they? They
Yes.
changed a lot. Having said that, I was reading an article today in the New York Times about insurance and how now folks are not able to get insurance for homes. Many of them built, in a lot of the, what I'm talking about, and climate change is causing all kinds of changes in that market. I'm just curious, can you just give me a really quick 101 on insurance availability for trailers, fire protection, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, 112,000 homes got built this year, and they all likely got insurance, both the replacement as well as your comprehensive coverage. That is not really an issue for most of every single sale I've ever made. That's a little bit of a lot of people try to use that. The reality is, in your particular area in Albemarle, you have one retailer that sells probably close to 80 homes a year. And I promise you, every single one is getting insurance escrowed, and they're utilizing government lending mechanisms such as VHDA for VA, USDA, and all those entities. Virginia Housing has a pretty good product out there as well. In terms of getting insurance, that's not been a factor, at least on this side of 95. I've never heard a problem.
Right.
Usually you do run into an issue if you're talking this product that's pre-1960. I mean, I would even look at you and say you're going to have that issue in a lot of housing stock anyway.
Yeah.
If you have an older home that you don't know the story of it, it's past its typical life cycle when you're doing redevelopment. The struggles that unit's having is not going to be much different than the 1960s home that hasn't been remodeled.
Thank you. It's an interesting article. I would recommend people read it. And it did break down the states. And Virginia was a state that was not having as much trouble as you might imagine, California and Florida and some of those states. But it was interesting. I was just curious as to what you were seeing in Virginia.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? And I don't want to take this down into the weeds. Just give me a really short answer, and then maybe we'll chat offline later. Do you sell or do you ever work with trailers for schools and educational buildings?
Yes, we have. It's a kind of a different type of product, pretty cookie cutter. Those systems do exist. They kind of get recycled a little bit. So if one school's having it, doing renovations, they usually have a pretty good protocol in transferring them up there because they're just open shells with air conditioning units in them. But if you need some connections to that, I have no problem providing that. And
well, it's just interesting, and I'll just say make one comment. I was at a manufactured housing trailer, whatever you want to call it, over at Albemarle High School, and it was like I was in a building. They had running water and bathrooms, just like you have in a hallway. It was really interesting, and I'll let it go with that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
One thing I did want to add, obviously, manufactured home communities is a major topic, and we, of course, were cognizant of some of the pre-issues of 1976 models related towards what is a manufactured home community, what the buying, selling situation is with a land lease. I have no problem talking to any of you offline about some of those barriers, some of the concerns, what that looks like in the future. I will look at you and say this. Local government has been probably the biggest nemesis pre-1985 towards manufactured home communities. And part of the reason why you don't see a lot of improved manufactured homes is because so many communities ran into barriers in that 40-year time frame between 1976 and really 2015-16 related to replacement of units. As a matter of fact, until some of the zoning changed in the state side, if you removed a single wide, you lost the right to replace that single wide entirely. And though state statute has some qualifiers as to how you're protected, if you don't have the income, you're not going to be able to afford the fight related towards upholding your rights to replace that unit. So, I'm very much interested in preserving housing stock related towards manufactured homes in their community sense with land lease and whatnot. I think there's a little bit of a delicate dance as to how we move forward with that and what that looks like. But for anybody who's on this call that's interested in what that discussion can be, I'd be more than interested. So,
What are the crane and set crew and transportation costs? Of course, transportation will depend on how far.
It varies. It depends on the topography related towards the site. If you're down in Southside Virginia, standard set could be about $4,000. A crane could, for a manufactured home, you don't normally need a crane, so it's just a set crew and a delivery. So you're talking, I would say, south of $10,000, hopefully. If you have topography and you have some situations with curvy roads and you require specialized equipment, prices do change. Obviously, I think manufactured homes can go anywhere. The answer is yes. Sometimes when you have to utilize a whole bunch of specialty equipment, you know, putting it on top of a mountain, you know, you might be sitting there asking yourself, okay, well, I might site build it. But in terms of it going anywhere, it can. And I've delivered houses past the Blue Ridge Parkway, on the Blue Ridge Parkway, as far down as Roanoke. And we've gotten pretty creative as to how to get there, getting the proper permits and getting the product there cheaper still than a site built product. Any other questions?
Well, Jesse, thank you so much for providing the information today, and likewise with the presentation ahead. If you have follow-ups that you think of later, by all means, I'm sure Jesse is willing to hear you out, and hit him up by email or phone call. But thank you, sir, for sharing that with us today.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, we're going to move on to number 7 on our agenda. So we have some staff updates. The first one is general housing program updates, and Ruth.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a quick update on some of the housing programs other than the RHP that the TJPDC operates. There are no big updates right now with the home ARP, or housing preservation grants, but the RFP for the Virginia Housing PDC Development Grant funds that became available were awarded to 3 groups. The Nelson County Community Development Foundation, the Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation, and Habitat for Humanity of Greater Charlottesville received those funds split evenly between the 3. And we are continuing to work toward kicking off the regional housing study in early 2025. And then there will be an update on the summit and what our VISTA has been up to from Emily Dreyfus and our VISTA, Caden Pritchett.
Great, so we can go to the summit update.
Okay. The summit starts on March 12th with the networking cocktail hour, which has very limited tickets. So please reply if you want to get into that. It's being sponsored by Erie Insurance and Specialized Insurance, joint sponsors. And the conference day is March 13th. So you should have gotten a couple of announcements about this. I think one went out to the RHP mailing list last week, I believe, or the week before. And then more recently this morning, there was one that went out to TJPDC's mailing list. So if you haven't seen those, I would say contact Lori Jean and ask her to send you some more info. The sponsors and speakers will be at the networking hour, and the breakout session list is up on the website. They got $5,000. I almost said 50. We wish. 5,000 from the Bama Works grant. And scholarships are being considered on a case-by-case basis. So please share the information about the conference so that registrations start rolling in. I'm sure they already are to some extent, but we need to get the word out, and maybe the best time to do that is early January rather than right now. We met with Erica Sims, who's going to be our keynote, a week ago, the group that's doing the summit planning. And I understand that several people have seen her and really liked hearing her keynotes. She seems extremely experienced. She's worked in government, nonprofits, and now is with the HD Advisors consulting firm. She's helping to run the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust. She's been on the development side, supportive housing side, all kinds of great things. So she brings a lot of experience and was very interested in the input we were providing about what we were hoping she would talk about. Is there anything else that needs to be said? Staff members chip in, or whoever else, or feel free to ask questions.
Lori Jean, could you state what the current remaining fundraising balance is?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Emily. Yeah, so the remaining fundraising balance is $11,700 remaining to fundraise.
And is that video sponsor still an open slot that you're seeking?
It's still open, yep.
But it's good news that we are very close to being able to cover all of our costs, including staff time, for organizing this summit.
Be great. And that's even closed another, it was something like 25 or something the last, like a month ago. So
It was something like that, yeah.
nice job for those working on that. I appreciate the effort going in. Summit's always been a well-attended and well-received time or event. We've received good feedback from it in the past, so looking forward to another successful one this year happening. So yeah, just check your inbox. I know it's a crazy time of year. Emails are easy to get lost. We'll be pushing information out again, I'm sure, but definitely get locked in. Just be helpful for both the evening before, if interested, and the day, the actual event itself. So thank you all. This will take us to other business, and we typically do the roundtable here, so we can do a quick one so that we can finish on time today. For those who may not have participated before, we usually ask you to provide some updates from your organization. I'll throw out one that you can also do this time, is if you would like to do a wish for your organization, a 2025 wish for what, oh, did I skip Caden and the Vista update? I'm sorry, Caden. Thank you for throwing your hand up. I jumped an agenda item there. Caden, I've missed a staff update. Before we go to the roundtable, we'll jump to you to do your Vista update. My apologies, sir.
It's fine, it's fine. Yep, like they were saying, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Caden Pritchett. I'm the Regional Affordable Housing Vista at the TJPDC. And I don't want to keep you guys too long before we get to the roundtable, but in terms of things I've been doing, one thing I've been a part of is the Emergency Food and Shelter Program. It's a federal program through United Way that's being funded through Homeland Security and FEMA. Charlottesville was awarded this past phase 41 that I've been a part of, and the funding for that has just now been going out and should be finishing up by the end of this month, as the ending of the spending period is also in this month, but can be extended. And I have been told that phase 42 will be opening once all the final reports will be done. Hopefully Charlottesville can also receive another award for that. And in terms for the RHP, one thing I have been working on for that is a new housing tool for us to use. Just a specific location just for designated resources to be looked at. I actually want to share my screen real quick so people can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so this is the program resource library that I've been working on that I mentioned, but pretty much has lists of organizations by categories that go from resource and information outreach down to service and emergency assistance, and then down to grant and funding programs. And each one of these organizations on the left side, these left columns, takes you a link right to their website, and I provided information for where you can find their jurisdiction, their service, and some of the eligibility information requirements. And if you notice some of them that say contact organization for more information, it was either it wasn't directly stated, or the organization themselves can provide more information just on that matter. But I would really like if anyone has any input on these, because I can, before I get this published on our actual CVRHP webpage, I would like to actually do some touch-ups more to this. But that's one of the things. And
Are you sending this out to everyone, Caden?
yeah, I can send this try to put this in our chat, or I can get Ruth to send this out to everybody after this meeting's done. Yeah,
That's great.
I would really, yeah. So the purpose behind it is for, we already know like a lot of people ask questions, to our localities, or like where can they find services. And so if you have someone who's from say like Green asking about services, and you can direct them, go to the webpage and direct them, hey, these are some providers in your area that are most likely help you.
Thank you.
And then another update is be on the lookout for a December newsletter. I'll be coming out real soon in terms of highlighting the housing summit again. And then I have been reaching out to the RHP members just to get some feedback about how you guys view the RHP, and where you guys think the direction should be headed. And if you do see an email from me, whenever you can, just please respond. It'll just be a set of questions just to get some information. It won't be shared publicly, and it was just to have us increase some of the communication and just some of the direction that we're headed with the RHP. But that's all the updates I have.
Hayden, thank you very much. Especially, yes, sharing that out. I think we should do that both by email and in the chat so that everybody has that. And then like you said, like Caden said, if there's feedback, send that back to Caden directly. If there's any updated info to update that before publishing. So thank you, sir. All right, we'll move quickly. We'll do some quick round table. And that, again, that's kind of a quick update or something you'd like to share from your organization and or a wish for 2025. I'm just going to move along the bottom of my visual screen here. Ron, you're up first. Ron Williams, you got anything you'd like to share or?
Yeah, thanks, Ned. Couple things. What we're focused on currently is an update to our zoning ordinance that's adding a new district type, which is a technology flex research and development zoning. And so we'll be working on that starting tonight and going forward. We also are updating the comprehensive plan for the town of Standardsville. We just completed the county comprehensive plan last year, and we serve as the planning commission for the town as well, and that's one of the things that we're working on. Lastly, I would like to introduce my alternate who's joining us for the first time, John McCloskey. Give a little wave, John. And Ruth had asked us to make sure we got that role filled.
Welcome, Mr. McCloskey. Thank you for stepping up to fill that role. And thank you, Ron, for the update. Annette, I've got you next on my screen. You want to jump in? Oh, you're muted.
I always miss that. All right. Our Virginia Career Works Piedmont Workforce Development Board quarterly meeting was yesterday. At that meeting, we unanimously approved a new eligible training provider, Flip Inc. from Dillwyn for our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is WOIA program. They're going to be providing training for installing and designing PV systems and solar installation certification. A photovoltaic system is composed of one or more solar panels combined with an inverter and other electrical and mechanical hardware that use energy from the sun to generate energy. Our executive director spoke about our recent yearly WOIA performance report, where VCWP received an A+ for meeting its goals. What's troubling is that beginning in 2025, the percentage that will be taken off these federal funds for WOIA for the governor set aside fund will increase from 15 to 25%. And that means all workforce development boards will be receiving less federal money to do the work. And people living in rural communities like where I live in Madison County are going to be the ones who suffer, and they're the ones who need the funds the most. And we just can't do this grant work on grants alone.
All right, thank you, Annette, for the update. Supervisor McKeel, we'll get you up next.
Thank you. And of course, I represent transit. So just to let you all know that both the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County have now approved moving to and the creation of a regional transit partnership. As many of you know, the state enabling legislation required that the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County begin the process. Those of you in other counties that are on this on this Zoom meeting, we are going to be reaching out to you. We'd love you to join us. But the first step is that we will be appointing in January from Albemarle and the city representatives from the Board of Supervisors and City Council to come together and to establish the partnership, get it going. We'll have bylaws that we're going to have to we have draft bylaws right now. We're going to have to look at them, pass them. So it'll be about a 6 to 8 month probably process in getting it going. But I just want everybody to start thinking about a regional transit partnership, which will allow us to determine the way that we are going to fund transit in our community so we can get people around. And because we just can't continue to pay for transit out of our operational funds. I'm happy to answer questions offline, but we're thrilled to have that step in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Holman, I got you up next.
Thank you. So Peter Holman, I'm with UVA Community Credit Union. And so the credit union is a financial cooperative, member owned. And so, of course, affordable housing is of utmost interest to us, since we're a member owned cooperative. The banking that everyone does here in our area stays in our area. And so where we fit into the housing equation, if you will, is on the financing side. And you asked about a wish for 2025. If I had to characterize one, I would say a wish for a little bit of relief for mortgage rates for our members in the area. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get that in 2025. Our outlook for mortgage rates is it will likely stick around current levels that they are today. However, what we're seeing is continued success for programs for first-time home buyers. We also recently launched our Hometown Heroes mortgage product, which provides 100% financing for those employed in medical, first responder, military jobs. And again, all that is here in our local community. But because of the lack of supply and just housing inventory, which again is keeping prices elevated, we're also seeing an increase in popularity of home renovation programs, as well as construction to permanent financing, because the homes aren't out there. There's more appetite for builders. And so, again, I think 2025, in terms of mortgage rates, will look a lot of the same, but our wish would be we get a little bit of relief.
Muted myself. Thank you, sir. I think you're right on the mortgage rate. It's wish it would come. That would be a wish of mine as well, but I'm not terribly optimistic. Greg, Mr. Powell, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you. All of us in the city are enjoying navigating through the new zoning ordinance, mostly very positive, I should add. And when I say all of us, I think the staff is navigating through it as well. I think there have been a couple of interesting, not very accurate articles about potential housing on the mall. I believe one article suggested you're not allowed doing housing on the mall. That was related to the shell of the hotel, which I don't believe is a correct statement. We look forward to a 2025 where money becomes more affordable so that we can be busy.
I wish that for you as well. Thank you, sir. Mr. Norris, Dave Norris, I see you up next.
Yeah, so I'm with the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors Foundation, and we are about to launch a new online housing resource guide in conjunction with Charlottesville tomorrow. So you'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks. It's basically a one-stop shop for all local housing resources, affordable housing programs and services in the city and county. And very excited to be launching that here very soon. In addition, we're kicking off our first volunteer initiative, early 2025, Homeownership Navigators, recruiting realtors and our partners to serve as mentors and advocates for first-time home buyers. So you'll be hearing more about that as well, and just plugging away in other ways. So,
thank you, Dave. Kim Highland, I see you up next.
Hello. We're just sort of plugging along as quickly as we can at Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation. I'd actually like to use my time to ask a question, particularly the Charlottesville people. We have been inundated in Louisa County with homeless people, which is a little unusual for such a rural area. And we saw the objections to the Salvation Army's low barrier shelter in Fifeville. And I just wanted to see if anybody had any insight as to what if these impacts are serious, if they will affect the project, sort of any inside knowledge anybody has on how this is going to affect that particular program.
This is Sunshine. I can share a couple of insights. The low barrier shelter in Fifeville is still a work in progress and no decisions have been made either way. I will say the biggest hurdle that the city that our community faces is actually the determination of an operator for that shelter. There is no obvious operator, nor and for a host of reasons, some of which are good and some of which are not. But we don't, that's a conundrum that I think the community faces. There, of course, is mixed feelings I have heard from the Fifeville neighborhood around, on the one hand, they're very strongly a YIMBY neighborhood, and they welcome a whole range of people. And there are real legitimate concerns given the proximity to a school, proximity to a park, and ensuring that there is sufficient sort of metaphorical guardrails around how to manage a shelter if an operation were to open there. But no final determination has been made as of yet. And the biggest barrier, I think, in many ways, is the determination of the operator.
Thanks for that update, Sunshine. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help. And yeah, it's difficult from where we are, but we feel your pain. We have, yeah, we keep being asked to open a homeless shelter, but I feel like the difficulties in a rural area are compounded by the fact that we don't have the transportation network. So thank you for bringing that up. And we don't have the services, we don't have the jobs. Getting people to and from what they need is an extra impact. So yeah, we certainly want to see this shelter succeed.
Yeah, and one last comment is that, and I think this is an important lens to look through, there is no good site for a low barrier shelter.
True.
Like there is always some hurdle or challenge, whether it's what you just described, Kim, or the adjacency that I just described to a school. There's always some circumstantial challenge with a low barrier shelter. So to some extent, we just have to like bite the bullet and move forward. But and by we, I mean the collectively.
Right.
But it's a work in progress.
Thanks.
Sunshine, you want to go ahead with your update since you're there and unmuted?
Sure, I'll keep it short. Kindlewood Phase 2, we are fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything I can possibly do, closing on Friday. So that we can start construction of Phase 2 in early January. That will be 100 rental homes, about 50 of which are replacement and about 50 of which are new affordable homes at a range of tiers of income from 30 to 80% AMI. It will also include 4 community land trust homes, the first investment in home ownership on the site since it was created. We have a tentative groundbreaking date, but it's not quite public, so I can't share it quite yet, but it'll be sort of end of January is what we're aiming for. It probably also in the news that many have seen is the progress and slow progress on the 501 Cherry Avenue site, which is the location is directly across the street from the proposed low barrier shelter. And what has been most in the news is around the grocery, having a neighborhood scale grocery as part of that redevelopment. There is, I would say, modest progress in the direction of finding an operator for that grocery. We are going to have to, the goal is to start construction towards the end of the summer next year. So there's still a bunch of steps in front of us, but we're making good progress, although we still have some hurdles to overcome. I'll leave it at that, but I'll say on my wish list is, I'll say 2 things. One is $3 to $5 million of working capital. I'll take that as a first wish list. And number 2 on the wish list is 462 less bureaucratic and financial hurdles in our projects next year.
Thank you, sir. And I do apologize. I see some folks have had to step out, that they've been dropping that in the chat. But Ms. Dreyfus, I got you up next.
Sure. Had to come up with 462 sunshine. It sounded like the 12 days of Christmas could be like modified. I have been working away on community organizing in various ways. There's a tenant day of action on January 16th at the General Assembly. I also work with the Charlottesville Area Tenant Leaders Association, and they've been following up on some collaboration that they did with the County of Albemarle's Office on Housing and CRHA to do landlord education. And the work mostly was done last summer, but one of the offers from the Albemarle County Office on Housing was to produce a video that could be shared with landlords when they have a mandatory training before getting set up with Section 8 contracts for rental vouchers. So that's been a fun project. And I am also working with county residents who are interested in the Housing Trust Fund model for the county, and that would be my wish for 2025 or for this holiday season, is to have a housing trust fund in Albemarle that would have $10 million in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Jesse, any further updates?
So the kind of mute button. I don't know. We're in the middle of rezoning, and I'm about to go to that meeting in an hour. So dealing with the interesting nuances of where people's mindsets are on housing is always intriguing. I don't like NIMBYism. I don't know what else we need to go for, but I'll also take $10 million to Nelson County Trust Fund paid for by Albemarle.
Bet you would. Thank you, sir. Luis?
We, for the Piedmont Community Land Trust, we've kept going with the developments that I broke down last time in 10th and Page neighborhood in the city, Belmont neighborhood, and in Kindlewood. But one particular project that I'm excited about that really showcases how organizations like Piedmont Housing Alliance, in partnership with organizations like Piedmont Community Land Trust, can make happen is that we're very near a contract for a home for PHA to acquire a home in the Fiveville neighborhood that will become a rent to own, so that the existing tenant can stay in the home, continue renting, and the Piedmont Community Land Trust can work with them to become ready to own that home in turn. And because it's through the Piedmont Community Land Trust, that home would then remain permanently affordable. It's a really exciting way to look at how all these pieces can come together to not just keep people in their homes, but also create affordable housing, and for that affordable housing to be permanently affordable. So really looking forward to how that develops. And with that, my wish is for the Community Land Trust to be able to really exercise its flexibility as a model for creating and preserving affordability with all of the different ways it can function.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Park, any additional items, updates?
I did. I think I shared it up already. I would just say for wishes, we're just completing our 34th year. So I'm prayerfully hopeful I can make it to the 35th. And along with what Peter said, lower interest rates and lower construction costs.
All in on that wish with you. Fingers crossed. Did I miss anyone in switching through? Is there anyone that I missed that would, on giving an update? And speak up if I did, I apologize. All right, well, I will say two things and use my roundtable to say, I hope that you enjoyed the presentations today. I think during the partnership or the full partnership meetings, we're going to start trying to do this to push info out. So if you have requests or think you have something to offer in terms of a presentation, you can please let me or Ruth know, and we will coordinate. The next time we will be together will be at the summit, so it'll be a little different partnership meeting just because of that. So the next time that we'll be having really a full partnership meeting in terms of something like this, it'll likely be in June. My wish for the partnership, I'm going to be reaching out to everybody for, we can do it in person or virtually, for a one-on-one meeting, just to ask some questions about how you think things are going at the partnership, what your wishes for the partnership might be, just kind of get a state of the union from each person one-on-one about what we could be doing in 2025 as a partnership. So I hope that you all will be able to give 15 minutes, 30 minutes. As I said with me, I'll be sending like a doodle, or what's it called, a Google, the little doodle pull out with some blocks of time, and just ask people to sign up and then give me your preference of whether you'd prefer to do that virtually or over a cup of coffee. But again, just looking for feedback on how you think things are going, what things you'd like to see the partnership do more of, and that would also give you a chance to think over other presentations or information you think would be helpful. I think the partnership is a good place to find the info and then provide that info out to everybody, in addition to what we share with one another when we come together. So, Ruth, did I miss anything that I should be addressing before we wrap up?
No, I just wanted to clarify the next full partnership meeting is before the networking hour, the day before the summit. And it's going to be at 4 p.m. so that when that meeting is over, folks can go directly to the networking event. It will not be on the summit day. And second, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that we have 3 appointments from the TJPDC Commission to the RHP. Cameron Moore had been an alternate for Shannon Mead as health industry representative, and now he's appointed member. We have Luke Rourke, who was able to attend today, who's from the Blue Ridge Home Builders Association, and then Fitzgerald Barnes from Louisa County.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruth, for those updates. Well, I sure do wish all of you a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. The executive committee will be meeting in January, and then we'll all be getting back together in March. And like I said, I'll wait till after the new year to send out the request to set up those one-on-ones, but hoping to do that throughout January, especially ahead of the March meeting. So just be looking for it then. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to Will and Jesse for the presentations. And like I said, everybody enjoy happy holidays and a happy new year. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.